The Red War, humanity's greatest stand story, begins as the chamber was suffocating with tension. 1,000 holographic faces stared at President Elias Voss, their expressions unreadable behind the flickering blue light of the transmission. The Galactic Federation Council, a body of species that spanned the stars, had convened to deliver humanity's fate. The words from the High Chancellor's projection echoed through the hall like a death sentence. Earth's aggression is a stain upon the cosmos. Your defiance is unacceptable. The Galactic Federation has deemed your civilization incompatible with interstellar peace. Silence. The weight of history crushed down on the room, but Elias Voss did not flinch. He sat, fingers laced together, his expression carved from stone. Around him, the United Human Council, presidents, generals, diplomats, watched, their faces pale. The Federation's judgment had been spoken, and all that remained was the response. Voss stood, his voice, calm and measured, cut through the stillness. "You call us incompatible," he said. "You label us primitive, aggressive, dangerous." He let the words hang in the air, stepping forward toward the central display where the Federation's representatives loomed like distant gods. Yet, it was not humanity who sought war. It was not humanity who first spilled blood beyond their own world. A murmur rippled through the chamber. General Catherine Holloway, her sharp gaze scanning the council, leaned in slightly. She had seen this play before, a politician navigating the storm. But Voss wasn't here to beg for humanity's right to exist. "You asked for our surrender," Voss continued. "For Earth to bend the knee, for Mars to be handed over as a demilitarized zone, for our fleets to be dismantled." His voice darkened. No, the room erupted. Some of the human council members gasped. Others nodded grimly. The holographic faces of the Federation flickered in reaction. The High Chancellor's voice, smooth and metallic, rang out once more. "If you refuse, your world will burn." General Holloway's lips curled into a smirk. She had seen this coming. She turned to Voss, her voice carrying an edge of grim amusement. "Well, they finally said it out loud." The president exhaled slowly. "So they have." He turned to the rest of the council. "Humanity has never backed down from extinction. We have fought through ice ages, plagues, and wars that should have broken us. And now, they think a fleet of alien ships can do what nature and time could not." The murmurs rose. Voss's voice became steel. "Mars will not be demilitarized. Mars will be our fortress, our last stand, if need be." General Holloway nodded. "Then we have preparations to make. The Red Planet will be ready." Voss turned back to the flickering holograms of the Federation. "Tell your fleets, Chancellor, if they come for us, they will find Mars waiting." The transmission ended. The war had begun. Far above Earth, in the cold of space, the first Federation warships had already begun their journey. And on Mars, in the underground city of Bastion, soldiers prepared for what they knew was coming. The first shots of the Red War were about to be fired. The red dust of Mars clung to everything. The steel-plated boots of the soldiers, the armor of the massive railgun emplacements, the reinforced domes of Bastion, the last human stronghold. The base stretched beneath the surface, a labyrinth of tunnels, war rooms, and barracks, all pulsing with a single, unbreakable purpose: survival. Major Darius Kane stood atop a watchtower, his silhouette outlined against the endless stretch of the Martian desert. He could see the glimmer of the domes protecting the underground city, feel the weight of the rifle strapped across his back, and hear the quiet hum of the automated defenses scanning the skies. They all knew what was coming. Below him, troops moved in tight formations, running drills, checking weapons, reinforcing defenses. They worked in grim silence, knowing that the moment the Federation's fleet dropped out of warp, there would be no time left for preparation. Lieutenant Sienna Ward approached, her dark hair pulled back in a tight braid, dust smeared across her face from working with the engineers. "They're pushing the orbital defense platforms into position. We'll have full planetary coverage by the end of the day." Kane exhaled, nodding. "Won't be enough," he muttered, scanning the horizon. "They'll come down hard, and when they do, we won't have the luxury of retreat." Sienna's lips twitched in a smirk. That's the thing about us, Major. We don't retreat. Kane glanced at her, a flicker of amusement crossing his battle-worn face. Damn right. He turned back toward the base. Show me the trench lines. They walked together through the layers of Bastion's defenses, barriers of steel and rock, hidden missile silos, underground transport tunnels designed for rapid redeployment. The war rooms flickered with holographic models of enemy attack simulations. Colonel Rajic, one of the chief strategists, turned as they entered. His voice was sharp. We've run 300 simulations on a planetary assault scenario. In 297 of them, we lose Mars within the first 3 weeks. Kane's jaw clenched. And the other 3? Rajic met his gaze. We bleed them so badly they think twice before coming back. A tense silence fell between them. It wasn't a victory. It was survival at best, annihilation at worst. A loud alarm blared suddenly, red warning lights flashing through the war room. A comms officer's voice came over the speakers, tight with urgency. Unidentified warp signatures detected. Federation fleet is dropping out of slipspace. Orbital sensors confirm multiple warships inbound. Kane felt his pulse slow, his mind sharpening. It had begun. Sienna took a slow breath. This is it. Kane turned to the war room, his voice steady, unyielding. Scramble all pilots. Activate the planetary defense grid. And get every soldier ready. If they want Mars, they'll have to take it from our cold, dead hands. Above them, in the black void of space, the first Federation ships emerged from warp. The battle for Mars had begun. The Martian sky burned as the first wave of enemy warships descended, their massive hulls cutting through the upper atmosphere like celestial predators. The ground beneath Bastion trembled as orbital bombardments slammed into the outer perimeter, turning rock and steel into firestorms. Dust clouds erupted from the impact zones, swallowing entire sections of the surface defenses in crimson chaos. Major Kane stood in the underground command center, staring at the tactical display. Red blips, enemy drop ships, were descending in clusters, their trajectories angling toward Bastion's fortified entry points. The Federation wasn't wasting time. They were coming fast, hard, and relentless. A frantic voice cut through the comms. This is Outpost Echo. They're dropping ground units. 3 clicks from our northern trench line. We need immediate. The transmission cut out in static, followed by an explosion in the distance. Kane turned to his officers. Deploy all surface squads to fallback positions. Fire on sight. No merci. Sienna, gripping her rifle, nodded and ran toward the exit. I'll hold the eastern line. Outside, the Martian battlefield had transformed into a nightmare. Federation drop pods streaked from the sky, slamming into the rocky terrain. The hatches burst open, releasing towering alien soldiers clad in shimmering bioarmor. Their elongated limbs moved with terrifying precision as they advanced, plasma rifles discharging blue energy that melted through steel barricades like paper. The first wave crashed into human defenses like a tidal wave. Soldiers braced in trenches, unleashing bursts of gunfire, kinetic rounds tearing into alien flesh. Railgun turrets thundered from fortified towers, ripping through drop ships before they could unload more troops. Explosions filled the air as missile launchers locked onto enemy walkers, reducing them to molten scrap. Kane sprinted toward the western line, barking orders into his comm. Hold the damn line. Don't let them breach the tunnels. A shock wave sent him sprawling as an enemy artillery shell struck nearby. He hit the ground hard, ears ringing, dust choking his lungs. Blinking through the haze, he saw a squad of Federation soldiers charging toward him, plasma weapons raised. He rolled onto his side, grabbing his sidearm. He fired 3 rounds, taking down the first one. The second lunged, but before it could reach him, a sniper shot cracked through the chaos, dropping at mid-stride. Kane turned to see Sienna perched atop a fallen barricade, her rifle smoking. "You good, Major?" she called, reloading. He spat blood and got to his feet. Still breathing, the battle raged on, bodies piling, explosions rattling the ground. But even as humanity fought with everything they had, Kane knew the truth. They were losing ground. The Federation was overwhelming them. Then the comms crackled again, and new voice came through. Bastion Command, this is Orbital Defense Platform Theta. We've locked onto enemy capital ships. Ready to fire. Kane wiped sweat from his brow, staring at the sky where Federation warships loomed. Then do it. High above Mars, the orbital defense cannons powered up, preparing to unleash hell. The orbital defense platforms roared to life, their massive railguns humming with deadly energy. In the silence of space, streaks of light erupted from their barrels, accelerating hypersonic projectiles toward the enemy fleet. The first round struck a Federation cruiser broadside, punching through its shields and carving a molten wound into its hull. A second shot ripped the ship in half, sending debris scattering in all directions. The sky above Mars became a killing field. Kane and Sienna barely had time to process the counterattack before another explosion rocked the trenches. The Federation ground forces were pushing harder, their second wave descending like a hammer. Alien warforms, standing 3 meters tall, surged through the dust, their exoskeletons gleaming under the crimson haze. They wielded plasma blades that cut through human armor with terrifying ease. The air was filled with the screams of dying men, the deafening crack of gunfire, and the unrelenting thunder of artillery. Kane ducked behind a broken barricade as plasma fire seared past him. "We can't hold this line forever," he shouted into his comm. "We need reinforcements now." A voice crackled back, thick with static. "Negative, Major. All units are engaged. You're on your own." Sienna fired her rifle from cover, her shots finding their mark in the exposed joints of an enemy soldier's armor. She exhaled sharply, already lining up another shot. "If this is us on our own, we're about to make history." Kane wiped blood from his brow, his mind racing. They were running out of time, out of men, out of options. The Federation had underestimated humanity's resilience, but numbers were numbers. No matter how hard they fought, they were still being pushed back. Then, a new sound cut through the chaos, a deep, unholy vibration that rattled Kane's bones. The ground trembled as something massive emerged from the Federation's landing zone. Through the smoke and fire, its silhouette took shape, an enormous war machine, easily 30 meters tall, moving with an eerie, deliberate pace. It was a siege walker, armed with twin plasma cannons capable of leveling entire cities. Kane felt his gut tighten. They're bringing in the big guns. The siege walker's cannons charged, glowing with an unnatural blue hue. If it fired, the eastern trenches would be wiped out in seconds. Sienna gritted her teeth. "We have anti-armor missiles, but not enough to—" "I don't care," Kane interrupted. "We take that thing down now, or Mars is lost." The walker's cannons reached full charge, its targeting systems locking onto Bastion's eastern defenses. Soldiers scrambled for cover, their weapons useless against its thick armor. Kane grabbed his comm, desperation seeping into his voice. "Bastion Command, this is Kane. Target the siege walker with everything you've got." A long pause. Then the response, "Confirmed, Major. Stand by." High above, in the darkness of space, something stirred. A weapon unlike any other. And soon, Mars would bear witness to humanity's unthinkable solution. The Martian ground quaked as the siege walker took another step, its massive cannons pulsing with energy, seconds away from firing. Kane clenched his jaw, gripping his rifle so hard his knuckles turned white. The eastern trenches were directly in its sights. If those cannons fired, hundreds of soldiers would be vaporized in an instant. "Bastion Command, what's the delay?" Kane barked into his comm, his voice edged with desperation. "Targeting systems are locking on," came the reply. "You need to buy us 20 more seconds." 20 seconds. An eternity in battle. Sienna crouched behind cover, reloading her rifle. "We don't have 20 seconds, Kane." He didn't reply. There was no time to think, no time to plan. There was only action. With a deep breath, Kane broke from cover and sprinted toward the siege walker. Plasma fire rained down around him, Federation soldiers turning their weapons in his direction. He zigzagged through the chaos, feeling the heat of near misses scorching the air. He heard Sienna curse before she followed, covering him with suppressing fire. The walker's cannons reached full charge. Kane could hear the hum growing louder, the energy coursing through its weapons preparing for the killing blast. He had seconds. He skidded to a stop beneath the massive war machine, lifting a beacon from his belt and slamming it into the ground. Now, he shouted into the comm from the orbital platforms above. The command was given. A blinding pillar of light erupted from the sky, slamming directly into the siege walker's hull. The impact sent a shockwave ripping through the battlefield, hurling Kane backward. The air filled with the shriek of rending metal as the walker's armor melted under the concentrated energy blast. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the walker shuddered violently, its structure failing. Sparks burst from its joints, flames licking up its massive frame. The once imposing war machine groaned, staggered, and finally collapsed, slamming into the Martian soil with a deafening crash. A cloud of red dust billowed into the air, blocking out the battlefield. Silence. Then, a roar of triumph rose from the human trenches. Soldiers who had moments ago faced certain death now surged forward, their morale reignited. Gunfire erupted as they pushed back, overwhelming the momentarily stunned Federation forces. Kane rolled onto his back, coughing dust from his lungs. He turned his head to see Sienna drop onto the ground beside him, breathing hard. She let out a breathless laugh. "I can't believe that actually worked." Kane sat up, watching the burning wreckage of the siege walker. "Neither can I." The comm crackled again. "Major Kane, this is Bastion Command. Enemy forces are retreating to regroup, but long-range scans show additional ships inbound. A second wave is coming, and this time, they're bringing everything." Kane closed his eyes for a second, exhaustion tugging at the edges of his mind. But there was no time to rest. He stood, gripping his rifle once more. "Then we hold," he said. "We make Mars a graveyard if we have to." Far above the red planet, new Federation warships emerged from slipspace, larger, deadlier, and more determined to crush humanity once and for all. The sky above Mars fractured open as the second Federation wave arrived. These were not just warships. They were dreadnoughts, planetary siege carriers designed to bring entire civilizations to their knees. Their hulls gleamed like obsidian against the backdrop of space, weapons bristling with unimaginable power. The moment they fully exited slipspace, the first barrage rained down. Kane barely had time to react before the ground beneath him lurched violently. Explosions tore through Bastion's perimeter, sending soldiers sprawling as fire and debris erupted around them. One of the western defense towers crumbled, its steel frame twisting before crashing down in a shower of sparks and dust. Screams filled the air, mingling with the mechanical whine of Federation drop pods screaming toward the surface. Sienna helped Kane to his feet, her face streaked with grime and blood. "They're not holding back anymore." "They never were," Kane growled, scanning the battlefield. The dust cloud from the fallen siege walker had cleared, revealing the advancing enemy lines. Thousands of troops poured from the incoming drop ships, their movements cold, precise, and unstoppable. The sky shimmered as Federation aerial units descended, their sleek black forms cutting through the smoke like predatory birds. Kane activated his comm, voice sharp. "Bastion Command, what's left of our air defenses?" The response was grim. "Orbital platforms are still operational, but they're being overwhelmed. Ground-to-air batteries are running dry. We won't be able to hold back another bombardment." Kane clenched his jaw. They had fought tooth and nail for every inch of ground, but the Federation was relentless. This wasn't just an invasion, it was an execution. Sienna reloaded her rifle, breathing heavily. "What's the play, Kane?" He exhaled slowly, his mind racing. The Federation had superior firepower, superior numbers. But they had one weakness. "They think we'll surrender," he muttered. Sienna frowned. "What?" Kane turned to the nearest field officer. "Give me a direct line to Bastion's Core Command." The officer hesitated but obeyed. A moment later, the voice of General Hartwell, Bastion's highest-ranking officer, crackled through the comms. "Kane, if you're calling to tell me how bad it is, I already know." "Not calling to complain, sir," Kane said. "I have a proposition." Silence on the line. "Then, I'm listening." Kane turned to look at the heart of Bastion, its underground fusion reactors, the power source for the entire colony. His next words came with an edge of finality. "We detonate the core." The comm line went dead for a second. Then Hartwell's voice came back, quieter this time. "You're talking about turning Mars into a pyre." Kane stared at the Federation forces swarming toward them, unstoppable, unwavering. "I'm talking about making sure they don't take this planet." "They want Mars? Fine. We'll give them nothing but fire and death." Above them, the Federation dreadnoughts began charging their superweapons. The final battle was about to begin. The ground beneath Bastion trembled as the Federation's final assault commenced. From orbit, the dreadnoughts unleashed beams of searing energy, carving deep scars into the Martian surface. Bastion's outer defenses crumbled one by one, entire sections of the city consumed in flames. The air was thick with dust, smoke, and the deafening cacophony of war. Humanity had minutes left, at best. Kane stood in the command center, gripping the console as tremors shook the underground bunker. Across the holographic display, red icons spread like an infection, marking enemy forces breaching the last defense lines. Sienna stood beside him, breathing hard, rifle slung across her back. Her voice was tight, strained. "They're inside the city. If we're going to do this, it has to be now." General Hartwell's voice came through the comms, steady but grim. "We've armed the core, Kane. If we trigger it, there's no stopping it. Everything within 1,000 kilometers will be incinerated." Kane exhaled, closing his eyes for a brief second. They had fought, bled, and sacrificed everything to hold Mars. Now, they had one last act to ensure humanity wasn't broken beneath the Federation's boot. "Do it." Hartwell hesitated. "You understand, I understand," Kane interrupted. He turned to Sienna, locking eyes with her. "We stay long enough to make sure they don't stop it." A deep rumble resonated through the bunker as the fusion core's failsafe disengaged. Red warning lights flashed across every terminal, and an automated voice echoed through the halls. "Critical reactor overload. Evacuate immediately." The Federation forces had noticed. Their comms flared with frantic transmissions as they detected the power spike. They knew what was coming. Their forces, so confident in victory, now scrambled to retreat. Warships in orbit altered course, attempting to reposition and evacuate their ground troops. But Kane and his people weren't about to let them escape unscathed. "Hit them with everything," Kane barked. Soldiers still standing in the ruins of Bastion fought with renewed fury, pinning the enemy down, denying them safe passage. The battlefield became a slaughterhouse. Explosions tore through retreating Federation troops. Snipers picked off officers trying to call an extraction. It was chaos, a final desperate stand of species refusing to kneel. Sienna turned to Kane. "We won't make it out." Kane gave a small, tired smile. "We never planned to." The Martian sky turned white. The explosion erupted from Bastion's core, a blinding shockwave of nuclear fire expanding outward in an instant. The blast consumed the city, engulfed the battlefield, and reached toward the heavens. Federation warships caught in low orbit were incinerated before they could escape. The dreadnoughts, too large to maneuver quickly, were torn apart, their massive hulls splitting as fire consumed them. And then silence. The once busy comms fell quiet. The red planet, scarred and broken, was still. Mars had not been conquered. Mars had been avenged.